move on up, cut the chatter.
All right.
All right, so my topic of conversation is going to be about, as I've noticed, and I mean no offense to any of y'all, but I see a lot of gray hair. I've got some myself. So I pose the question to you guys, where's the next generation? What are we doing to elevate our footprint, to engage and inspire the next generations? So for me, just again to kind of highlight over my background so you have a little bit more context, if you didn't read that bio, I come from a farming background. Grew up in Haywood County, tobacco, vegetable farms. My family grew their own garden, grew 12 acres of early tobacco, paid for the property taxes, and then I worked for a local farmer. Chambers Farms, pretty much from 12 years old all through high school, every summer, hay, tobacco, vegetables. So that introduced me into the green industry. Then I landed a job at a local wholesale and retail nursery. It's mostly focused on wholesale propagation, Lady Gardens. They've been there about 34 years. So when they approached 40 years in the business, they retired. They didn't have the next generation to take it over. And at 17, 18 years old, I did not have the means to take over such an operation. But that's really where I started honing my skills in horticulture, was there at Lakeview Gardens. They did a lot of the coleuses on the market, Garden Walk, Tilt-A-Whirl. Those are some of his famous patented cultivars, your Cotton Candy Mandavillas, your Double Blooming Lantanas. He developed those in the Waynesville, North Carolina. Then when they shut down, I needed another hort job, needed to figure that out, and so I actually went to Europe for a while, worked in some feeding centers and doing some mission works over there. Decided I wanted to be a chef, and I needed to pay my way through college, so I went to AV Tech and took a job at Biltmore as a gardener. 16 years later, after progressing through the ranks there, primarily over the walled garden, the rose garden, conservatory, ornamental turf in the historic gardens, I transitioned to being over the gardens and grounds of the Amarillo Village, the winery, the Inn on Biltmore, the gun club on the west side of property, Marking Arts College. So that was about 16 years at Biltmore before they cherry-picked me to come over to B.B. Barnes. So to clarify, B.B. Barnes has two primary arms. There's retail and there's landscape. And so I'm the GM and Director of Services for landscape. So that's a little bit about me, and I've been with B.B. Barnes almost 5 years now. But relationship and engaging the next generations is important to me. That was one of the legacy plays for my predecessor who founded the B.B. Barnes landscape division of that company, Hunter Stubbs. Many of you may or may not know him.
He's talked to this group.
I developed a relationship with him when I was a young supervisor at Biltmore. He was still at Richmond Hill Inn. We would do a gardening exchange. I would send gardeners over there for a day. He would send gardeners to me, and we developed that relationship. So he had been trying to get me to come on board with him at B.B. Barnes for many, many years. It was unfortunately 2 years after he passed that I finally took the lead. So I pose the question to you guys. Why are y'all a part of this group? Socialize, hang out, do something good for the community, passionate about horticulture.
Yeah.
So what is gardening in y'all's perspective? What's gardening? What's the difference between gardening and landscaping? I hear that argument all the time. So I think that's where it starts. Engaging with the next generation is being able to identify the difference and not make either one better or worse, right? Either one right or wrong. So give me some feedback. What is gardening versus landscaping in your humble opinion?
I would
let's say when you're landscaping, you're creating a completely new environment, okay? It's the creation. When you're gardening, you're maintaining something and you're harvesting it and trying to preserve it, but it's something that may disappear at the end of the season to be eaten. That's the difference.
It's pretty spot on. Anybody else?
When I think of landscape, design is a big piece of what I think about when I think of landscaping. I guess I think of gardening is the maintenance of all of that. The work with the ground, in the ground, now you're gardening.
Amazing.
Well, there's an overlap there.
Anybody else? I think you guys are all over it. So I wrote some notes down here from my perspective. There is similarities between landscaping and gardening, obviously, horticulture at its core. They both require horticulture knowledge and some know-how, but they carry two distinctive modes of action, different skills, different techniques. Landscape is focused on design and design intention and construction of outdoor spaces, while gardening is focused on the cultivation and care of the ground and the plants. That summarize that pretty good. So knowing the difference allows us to have the methods and to engage the next generation, right? And following me with that. It's like if we just throw, overly verbose language out there about gardening, how is that inspiring you sort of confidence if we don't understand that it's all horticulture? And really, the conversations need to start with connecting to them through horticulture by whatever means necessary, whether that's turf care, whether that's gardening, whether that's propagation or cultivation from a greenhouse standpoint, whether that's growing roses for competition, right? It's that one seed we need to engage them in the horticulture industry, whether it's funneled through the lenses of landscape or gardening, who cares, right? I think it's also important to engage in the fun side of horticulture, right? Like connecting to them with just some interesting things. One, it makes you look pretty dang smart and clever and funny all at the same time when you're in a crowd of people or you're conversating or whatever, and you can throw out a fun fact, especially relating it back to plants. At least that's my method. I've hired so many people over the years just through engaging in conversations, whether it's nurses, whether it's chefs, whether it's retired Lutheran ministers, whether it's school teachers, people who just had engaging conversations, gets them interested in coming to work for you. Hey, I'm interested in that. Hey, that is curious. That seems, intriguing to me, so they'll go and investigate that for themselves and come and have a job. So how are you guys engaging and inspiring people to get into gardening and horticulture?
I'm not.
It's the same thing. When we meet people, we have conversations.
You got one?
Yeah, volunteer to landscape your neighbors.
When did you
Pay
say?
me, I'll come do it.
Small landscape your neighbor.
Anybody else? So what parts of the horticulture, what parts of gardening are you guys passionate about? Hearing some of the things that y'all got upcoming on your calendars to try to tackle, but are y'all focused on any one singular thing? Is it more perennial gardening? Is it more vegetable gardening? Is it shrubs, trees?
The group is diverse.
Yeah.
With respect to all that.
Yeah.
I think this year is really about capacity expansion and, with all the work that everyone's been doing at
Yeah.
the Sports Center,
Are you asking about the focus of the club or?
Well, just both, right? As far as, you know, where does your inspiration lie, right? If you guys are inspiring each other, you're gonna naturally inspire other people, right? So it starts with you guys being connected and having a singular focus on what you're pursuing, and then in doing so, you have clear objectives that are gonna bring that next generation, right? They see where they can fit in, they see where they can, you know, attach to an idea. And I know this is just big conversations, but me noticing it of being a horticulture professional, I'm dedicating the entirety of my career, really, since I was 12 years old, to the green industry. It's important to me, especially when you're seeing, I can remember, you know, 04, 05, 06, where I had my pick of the litter of educated horticulture professionals, right? Then you have the recession. What did that result in? Even more, like, could have one job posting for a gardener, and I'm getting landscape architects, I'm getting people with 4-year degrees from Penn State, from Auburn, from Florida, from University of Georgia, where they study perennials with Alan Armitage, right? Like the pick of the litter, the cream of the crop. Well, you turn back around, and it's 2012, 2014, where's the horticulture professionals? They're not there. They're not engaging in those programs. They're not engaging. I mean, Blue Ridge College that I've heard through the grapevine you guys support, doing some sponsorship programs. Great program. We connect. I've got 2 students that are in the program right now that work for me. But they've had ebbs and flows, right? Where it's a 2-year degree, then it's a 1-year certificate. Then we don't have it anymore. Now we're a 1-year certificate. Now we're back to 2 years. Teetering even this last year on, are we going to have enough students to continue this program?
You're talking about Blue Ridge now?
Blue Ridge College. This is the same as Haywood Community College. This is the same as Sand Hills or Central Piedmont, right? Always teetering on that fine line of, are we going to have enough interest in engaging in this? And then not being able to offer the full scope, the full diversified scope of what horticulture has to offer. Having to choose and say, we're going to focus on turf grass, right? That's what our core focus is going to be, because we've got enough students interested in that. Or hey, we're going to focus on horticulture and forestry because that's what we got. And that works. So again, these are just big ideas and big thoughts to say, hey, you guys are at a place poised to be engaging your community by nature of it. I don't have that luxury because I run a business. So a lot of times people are always looking at the angle that I'm coming to them from of what's my motivation, right? What am I getting at? What's my agenda in this conversation?
One of the things we've been discussing as a club lately is the matter of, indeed, the future of horticulture education with the whole the corporate side of growing is swamping out smaller businesses so much, and we find ourselves concerned with even endowing these horticulture scholarships. Is it really a good future? Is there a future for people in that area?
Well, a lot of it is, it's not necessarily the large conglomerates. It's even here locally. We buy from a lot of people, and for years, it's the next generations that aren't taking it over from their families. We've got several wholesale growers who kids aren't interested in the nursery industry. So what's the homeowner to do but shut her down or sell it to the next available conglomerate that's going to come in and scoop them up? So, keeping the context clear is if it's not just these monster machines coming in here and just gobbling up everything, it's actually the reverse. It's actually some of these larger people from Florida, from Georgia, are coming here and almost being a savior to these 40-year-old nurseries who are like, I got nowhere to go. I'm going to have to shut it down unless someone takes this operation over for me. Best case scenario, yeah, they would rather turn the keys over to the next generation, coach and guide and inspire and train them, but when they're not there to do so. again, that's just where my heart's coming from. So again, we're talking about some of the bigger political type, you know, agenda items here, but then what is some things that you guys can use to engage in your communities, engage your churches, whatever organization that you're affiliated with, how do you engage in those conversations?
So growing up in Texas, we had really big Future Farmers of America and 4-H clubs, you know, in the elementary, junior high, high schools. Even I grew up in Dallas, you know, which was pretty urban. We still have those organizations. Have those clubs gone away?
They're teetering. Some high schools, especially elementary, middle school, don't have greenhouses anymore, right? It's like you go all through elementary school and you don't have a greenhouse as an elective, right? I grew up, we had greenhouse, we had farming, right? We had those electives that you could take, and even those are dwindling because of the interest. And so is it that people don't want to do that type of work, or are we not engaging enough in our local communities from an educational standpoint, from an excitement and energetic standpoint? So, you know, that's where we're kind of going to wrap up this, you know, conversation in, is like, what methods are you using to engage and educate? You know, and I think a lot of it just starts with some fun facts. So I rack my brain. I have a ton, but I try to limit myself because I'm so used to running a business that when I actually have the opportunity to stop and really think about the horticulture savviness, it does get me excited, and I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta quit writing all this stuff. So what's the one thing you would tell somebody about soil? Like if you had the opportunity, you're engaging in a conversation with somebody, what's the one thing you would pick to get them inspired to get their hands dirty?
Buy a microscope.
Amend it. Amend it. Especially around here.
Anybody else?
It's complex.
Well, if they ask, well, what does it mean? What's complex? Why is it complex? Like, what's the one key thing that you would say? I mean, all these are great things, great suggestions. Composting, mending, soil's complex, look at the micro diversity. If I said anti-depression.
I always ask people to come and help me weed.
Right?
It's the best exercise for your hands, actually.
Do you know there's a microorganism that has some of the highest trace elements of natural serotonin that lives in the soil? Right? So let's take it from not just a feeling that we all know because we are energized or we're refreshed or renewed with our hands in the dirt for a multitude of reasons, right? Physical work, you know, the sun on our face, all of those things. But if you're able to take it, soil's complex, use that door to say, hey, did you realize that it is scientifically proven that you rolling around with some dirt under your fingernails, right, is beneficial mentally to your health. Like, it's proven. It is proven.
I agree with that one.
So that's one that I always try to start with. So, well, get your hands dirty. Right? Well, this is going to be good for you. And that has, like I said earlier, I've been able to hire people and get them engaged because they're coming to me and they want to reset. Hey, I've been nursing for 30 years. I'm burnt out, right? COVID killed me, working in the hospital. Can I just come get my hands dirty for a month or two for a reset? I know, hey, you absolutely, come on, right? You know the basics, you know the process, I can teach you the rest. But I know and trust that they get their hands dirty, it's going to start changing them, right? So pitching the conversation and steering it in that direction is always a winner for me. Did you know that a sunflower is not just one flower?
Composite.
know that? That it is comprised of sometimes 1,000, sometimes up to 2,000 individual forms. Green, all of those things is healthy for the environment, and that's 100% need to be recognized. But just in that statement right there, the reason why the butterflies are more attracting to weeds is because the weeds aren't cultivated. They're not crossed, they're not engineered, they're not regrown, and regrowns have bigger blooms, right? So they're less fragrant, they're putting out less pollen, and so they're less attractive. That's why the honeybee and the butterfly are going to the white clover, they're going to the dandelions, right? They're going to the buttercups because these are weeds untainted with. But hey, what are we? We're gardeners, right? We're landscapers. We are by nature cultivating something to be beautiful. And so finding the conversation that balances the two, again, engages in those conversations. So if we can't make ourselves relevant to those conversations, then people are going to be like, I'm not interested in that, right? Again, just my perspective. How can baking soda help your tomatoes be sweeter? Baking soda, anybody?
Adds calcium.
Anybody else?
Does it reduce the acid?
Yep. So, what does baking soda do? It reduces acid. So sprinkling that around your tomatoes, by chemistry, will reduce the overall acid content over time in that tomato, making it sweeter. That's a good fun fact. Let's see what else I've got. Did you know that some fruits are actually roses? Anybody tell me what they would do? Right? Your prunus, apples, prunus malus, apples, pears, peaches, cherries, raspberries, and strawberries are actually in the Rosaceae family. So they're cousins to hybrids and grandifloras and floribundas and all those wonderful roses that we harvest, long stem, varieties. I'm sure this is a common one that most people know, but I like to throw it out there for an easy softball. What does changing the pH in your soil do to a hydrangea?
Changes color.
Pink to blue.
Yep.
Pink to blue, which is which? Right, which turns which?
It turns blue when you add acid, it turns pink when you add base.
Pink is acid, isn't it?
Yep, pink is basically the alkaline, so the more alkaline the soil, the pinker.
Pink is
That
alkaline.
acid, it goes blue, so,
It's a litmus strip.
It's like,
Litmus.
yeah. So, a lot of people, old timers, they changed out some banana peels and some coffee grounds, but, I'm sure that varies for what kind of coffee you're drinking, how acidic your actual coffee is. But that's a good, easy, fun fact. What about turf grass? Well, gardeners. No one really wants to talk a whole lot about turf grass, but that is one of the industries within the overall horticulture sphere that still has interest in it, right? There's still a lot of people learning turf and ornamental grasses, golf course management, because they see a future in that industry. They see they can start their own business and start a lawn care company relatively simply. So how do we use that as an avenue, again, to engage them coming on board into horticulture? So they're not just some hobo and go fellow that can run a weed eater and a lawnmower, that they're actually engaging in the full process and saying, hey, we can cultivate and we can tend and we can garden this turf grass just like we do our flower beds. So, did you know 15 square meters of tall fescue produces enough oxygen to support a family of 4 every day.
15 square meters.
Grass absorbs the, carbon dioxide, releases the oxygen, but all we ever hear about is plant a tree. Plant a tree. Right? You need more oxygen, plant a tree. Plant a tree. Well, there's turf everywhere. Are we maintaining it at a high level and expressing the importance of it just as much as the oak tree? We don't. We don't engage in those kinds of conversations.
Some of this is cultural trends as well.
It is. But you guys are poised in an area like Asheville where there's people who are hungry for those conversations. There's more people in this area that I've encountered over the past 10 to 15 years that are just curious. They're curious in an interesting conversation. So how can we steer that conversation to horticulture, right? To get more players on your team, to get more outlets, that you can serve into. What about bluebells? Anybody know the hyacinths, bluebells? What's a fun fact about bluebells?
They keep spreading. You cannot get rid of them.
Did you know that they were originally used as a glue, as adhesive?
Interesting.
They would actually process them down to bind the pages, the spines of books was bluebell glue. So some of those first editions that people are so enamored with, there's an opportunity to pitch it to a horticulture conversation, or someone looking at an old parchment and needs to say, hey, some of the first paper was papyrus. Sapir is papyrus. Using that as opportunities to engage in interesting conversations. What about cedars? If I say eastern red cedar, western red cedar, am I accurate in those two statements?
Eastern red cedar is June.
The other one's arborvitae.
Correct. So the western red cedar is a thuya, arborvitae. Eastern red cedar is actually a juniper. Right? They're great for shingles, wood siding on some houses, both with different properties and characteristics. The western is going to be more red in color, be a little bit more resistant to overall moisture. Where's the true cedars? How many true cedars are there in the world?
3.
Four.
How about, Atlas cedars? Theodora cedars?
4.
Cedar of Lebanon, the Himalayan.
The cypress cedar, which
Himalayan is Theodora.
there's Deodora, Cedrus Deodora, cedar of Lebanon,
Atlas,
the blue atlas, right, which can go, so Cedrus Atlantica, Vaca, and then you have the other one, which is the cypress cedar, which some believe is just a variation of Deodora, but no one has disputed it scientifically yet. There's only 4 true cedars in the world.
Is that Arizona cypress? Is that the same thing? Or is it
Nope.
different? That's
No,
different.
that's a cuprous. So, again, just interesting facts.
And then white cedar, Camassiferous.
Yep. We like to label things all the same, right? It helps us. We think they look similar, and we're like, yeah, that's just another cedar. It's like, how many times have we heard they got caught in that laurel thicket? Anybody know what that means?
Heard what?
I got caught in the laurel thicket.
Rhododendron.
Right? It's not Calmia, latifolia. It's rhododendron. They're in a rhododendron, tiger rhododendron. And then my last fun fact is one of my favorite. Does anybody know what a katsura tree is? Katsura.
Oh, Katsura, yeah.
So Go to the store, go to our retail shop. We got one right in the corner of the parking lot. So when you turn in off the Sweet Creek Road, it is literally right there in front of you before you turn. Why is that tree so unique, especially this time of year?
The caramel smell. The leaves are turning.
That's exactly right. So I like to take, when I engage employees with it all the time. Hey, have you smelled this? Come out here and take a walk with me for 5 minutes. Let me teach you something special. Couple of weeks out of the entire year. So the catsura, a lot of people call it, smells like caramel, cotton candy. It's just got that rich sugary. So basically during the process of decomposition, so as the tree is changing colors, it's reducing its photosynthesis, just like all trees, right? So that's slowing down, the chlorophyll's changing to change the color of the leaf. But in that process, catsura are unique because they're releasing so much more sugar to start that process of that decomposition for that leaf change and then the drop. So that decaying process is why it just releases this aromatic fragrance, like literally you're within 20, 30 yards of it. It just permeates the air like you're at a carnival. It smells like cotton candy. I mean, talk about engaging someone in an interesting conversation surrounding horticulture. Like, what does this smell like? Take a whiff of this and then to be able to explain that whole process is pretty awesome. I mean, there's only 2 other trees that will release that level of complex sugars. Larch, I think, is one of them, and then there is some pine trees in their needles can release that copious amounts of sugar and have a similar minimalistic, sweet smell to it. But catsura is pretty special tree.
You can start an interesting conversation around dog hobble when it's blue too.
Oh yeah, if you want to smell cat urine, yeah.
I was wondering, when's the time of the year that this?
This is all processing right now. So as
All
you
right.
see, so catsura looks a lot like a white oak in its bark, and it's got small, almost like a spade-looking leaf on it. But yeah, go by the garden center on Sweet Creek Road. We've got one in our parking lot there. They're beautiful fall color, and right when that starts, right, that transition between everything changing and that whole photosynthesis slows down because of our daylight, and so that chlorophyll's changing from green to yellow to orange. It's releasing those complex sugars, and it's awesome.
One thing that I've always liked, and it's something that's going away, is the white ash. To have a couple of logs, and it means something to people our age, and you hit them together, and you say, I know that sound. It's the sound of a baseball bat.
It's a great fact. I mean, have those conversations. Like that, it gets me excited. Oh, really? Well, let me go learn. I mean, I'm a fruitcake. I like to learn about everything. So I'm going to be like, let me go look at the history of white ash and baseball bats. Like, I'm going to want to know the origin story of that. But there's so many people that are interested. They just want a word of knowledge, right? They just want a unique statement. They want something that they can put in their pocket for their own conversations, right? I mean, you just say a name like Lagastronia indica, which is anybody?
That's a crepe myrtle.
Crepe myrtle, or you say Metasequoia glyptostromoides.
You're talking about,
Don Red Tip.
you're talking about fragrance. What gives the Cleveland pear such a wonderful odor when flowers come out?
Do tell us.
Huh?
Do tell us.
Say it again.
Do tell us.
Well, the flowers come out and they stink. They absolutely smell. They're horrible. They come out early, and there's other pear trees that are similar, but that one's pretty bad.
It is. Or what if we were to say, talking about stinking?
Right.
What about dracunculus vulgaris? Voodoo lily. Talk about something that smells rather peculiar. Well, it smells like death
Where's Scapelia?
because it is pollinated by flies.
That one.
And so it releases this rank smell of rotting meat to attract the flies to pollinate it. The whole, beautiful, right? You look at that, you look at Amorphophallus or something along that same lines, you're like, what is that unique thing growing out that looks like something out of a video game? And then they get close and realize, no bueno to that one. But again, these are just trying to inspire you guys to have interesting conversations, to use your knowledge to be able to engage in those conversations with other people that can inspire them to dig into horticulture, the world of horticulture. Plus, just like the Don Redwood, you spot some of those Latin names out there, or a fun fact about ash in baseball, or your cedars. I think it just engages people to look at it from a different perspective, that it is fun, it is entertaining, but there's so many benefits that can be completely circled back to in the world of horticulture. I mean, there's a whole lab group of individuals that have developed things in history, like, Velcro was developed off of like an insect. Well, it's the same, and then also, so he studied insects. I'm not 100% sure on this, but then it was cuckleburs, that you get the birds on you. So he started looking at the difference between beetles and things like that, and studying that, and got fascinated with birds that develop Velcro. Don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere along those lines. But again, those are just interesting things. Where did that come from? A lot of times you can steer it right back to horticulture. So anyway, thank you guys for the time. Hope it was somewhat educational and entertaining.